back again to Light on the Word. And we thank you very much for those of you who have been following this broadcast on Facebook and on our YouTube channel and here on the Word Network, the Now Network. We are thankful to God and excited about the topic that we've been sharing, the topic concerning the keys to divine marriage relationships. And in this sermon today, I want to talk about the challenges that there are in trying to have a divine marriage relationship. We have to realize that we are living in a real world, and that even though marriage is a wonderful and a blissful thing, often there are challenges. There are things that get in our way. There are things that challenge us. There are things that may impede the flow of love and may hinder us from actually enjoying a divine marriage relationship. And so we want to talk about those things, and we want to talk about how we can always get the victory. We can always have a divine marriage relationship, but we may have to work our way through some challenges, and we have to apply the attributes of God, which are the keys to a divine marriage relationship. We have to apply the attribute of love and patience and the other attributes that make a good marriage. A divine marriage relationship. Let's first of all review the meaning of a divine marriage relationship. A divine marriage relationship is a relationship that has been designed by God. God engineered, God inspired. It is when a relationship functions as God designed for it to function. It is a relationship that operates and receives the pleasures, the power, and the satisfaction that is possible in a marriage. It is a marriage that utilizes the attributes of God after the manner that God does. Love, the attributes of love, forgiveness, unselfishness, self-sacrificing, concern for one's mate. The blissful pleasures of the union are seen in a divine marriage relationship. Marriage works. Marriage works if we apply the attributes of God in our marriage. A divine relationship is God-flavored and God-favored. It has the same value in the relationship that God has when he demonstrated it where Christ loved the church, as described in Ephesians chapter 5. A divine relationship is a relationship that has activated all of the blessings and the benefits of the union. And it takes advantage of all those blessings and all those benefits of the union. In a divine marriage relationship, we let nothing get past us that belongs to us. We do not walk away from anything that belongs to us. If we're supposed to have love, and if we're supposed to have safety, and if we're supposed to have honor, and if we're supposed to have the closest relationship that one can have on earth, that is the relationship of a husband and a wife, and the joy of that relationship, if we are supposed to have that, then in a divine relationship, we go for that. We don't walk away from that. It enjoys, a divine marriage relationship enjoys all of the power, all of the pleasures, the fulfillment, the safety, the security, the satisfaction, the joy, the zeal, and the thrills, and all of the perks, and the rights and privileges and benefits of being married. It is being emotionally calibrated correctly. And what I mean by that is, in a divine marriage relationship, when you have the proper value system, when your emotions are where they're supposed to be, If a man's love is where it's supposed to be, then he enjoys loving his wife. And if a lady's emotions, if a wife's emotions are properly calibrated, if they're in where they should be, then she will enjoy her husband. If they are not where they should be, then there's something wrong. A woman will not resist her husband if she has the right emotional calibration. In other words, if she really is where her mind and where her spirit should be, she will not resist her husband. She will not reject him. Now, I said that because it has been said in counseling, and as we counsel so many people, that a man will come and tell us that I've done everything for my wife, but I can't seem to motivate her. She doesn't care. I've given her everything. I've bought her this and I bought her that, and I've given her her own home. I've given her own car, and I've given her everything, but she's just not motivated. She's just not interested. She doesn't have the thrill and the excitement that she once had or that she should have. In a case like that, then there's something wrong in that case. However, in a divine marriage relationship where the woman is doing and operating as it is modeled by the church, or it is intended by God for the church to do, as he said in Ephesians, let the women submit themselves to their own husbands. When the lady is in the proper emotional and love feelings in the marriage, she would gladly want to merge, and she would gladly submit to her husband. But there are oftentimes challenges. There are challenges in marriage. And today I'm going to talk about challenges because sometimes some people may say that I am unrealistic because my marriage is so good that I really can't relate to challenges. Well, let nobody tell you that. Let nobody make you think that. I remember my pastor, he had such a beautiful relationship with his wife, and he was such a model of love, the husband loving the wife. But I know he would tell us that even though they were successful, they were not successful without some challenges. You will have some challenges. I've had challenges with my wife, but it seemed like we didn't. It seemed like I don't remember because God has blessed us to get through some real deep challenges. And he blessed us. And one thing Noel Jones told us one time when we were in the office, he told us that sometimes our fathers in the gospel, our parents, don't tell us the whole story. They don't tell us about the challenges. They don't tell us about the hard times. They don't tell us about how they almost didn't make it. And so it is beneficial sometimes for us to tell you that we have had challenges as well. And I think one of the things that make us good advisors is the fact that we have gone through, and we've gone through, and we've came through, and we are successful, and we have entered into a divine marriage relationship, not only just entering into it, but entering into it with joy and happiness. So, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how the husband is supposed to love the wife, and how the wife is supposed to submit, cooperate, and blend with the husband. They both have a job to do. Now, I'm going to go to 1 Timothy chapter 2, and I'm going to read there. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 2, in verse number 1. I exhort, therefore, that, first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. For this is good and acceptable in the sight of God, our Savior, who will have all men to be saved and to come unto the knowledge of the truth. For there is one God and one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ, who gave himself a ransom for all, to be testified in due time. Whereunto I am ordained a preacher and an apostle. I speak the truth in Christ, I lie not. A teacher of the Gentiles in faith and verity. I will therefore that men pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubt. The reason why I read the scripture, and verse number 8 is really the focus of where I'm going, starting there in 8, is because here the apostle is writing to Timothy, the pastor of a church that was located in a place called Ephesus. And in that place, Ephesus, there was a lot of doctrines floating around. There were doctrines that were against the doctrines of the church. There was also there in Ephesus a temple of a false goddess. The false goddess name was Diana. Diana was a goddess, and she was worshipped by a complete female priesthood. The worship of Diana and the teachings of Diana worship told the women that they did not have to submit to their husbands. It told the women that the story of Adam and Eve was incorrect. It said that the true story of Adam and Eve was that Eve came before Adam. And Eve came before Adam, therefore Eve is over Adam. Therefore the woman does not need the man. Therefore the woman does not have to submit to the man in marriage. Therefore the woman is higher than the man in the marriage dome. And so this was what was going on in Ephesus at the time. In verse number 8, he says, I will therefore that men pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubt. And so here, what Paul is saying to the church there, in verse number 8, is directed at the men in Ephesus, in the situation where they are having challenges with their wives. They're having challenges with their wives in the marriage situation. They're having challenges with their wives. The challenge of the city of Ephesus was pertaining to marriage, the women in the marriage relationship. This was not pertaining to women in the ministry. This is not a chapter about women ministers or women pastors, but it is a chapter about women who were affected by a doctrine in Ephesus at that time that caused them to not submit to their husbands, caused them to rebel against their husbands, and caused them to resist their husbands, which such a situation caused a great disturbance in the city and a great confusion about the place of the woman in the marriage and the place of the man in the marriage and the relationship of the women to the men. So Paul is writing to that situation, and he tells these women were going after Diana, and they were wearing the jewelry that the women who worshiped Diana wore. they were wearing it. And when they wore it, it's not just the fact that they were wearing this jewelry, but it was what the jewelry meant. It meant that I am independent from you. I am a worshiper of Diana. I am independent from you. I can resist you. I don't have to love you. I don't have to submit to you. And I can be over you, and I am over you in the home. This is what this was about. And so this created a challenge. This challenge was the challenge that Paul was correcting when he wrote to Timothy. And he told Timothy, he said, Timothy, verse number 9, he says, just like I want the men to do this, I want the men in this situation to pray. Here, men in verse 8 referred to the husbands. I wish they would pray, lift up holy hands, without wrath and without doubt, and pray for their wives, and pray that they'll have the strength to forgive them, and pray that they can win their wives over. Pray that they will not be overtaken by anger and strife against their wives in this very adverse and challenging situation. He said, I would that men would pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubt. In like manner, just like I have instructed the men, I instruct the women in like manner that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but that which becometh women professing godliness with good works. Let the women learn in silence. Let there not be this disruption. Let the women take the humble robe. This is the marriage situation. But I suffer not a woman to teach, that is in the home or in the marriage dome, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. For Adam was first formed, then Eve came behind him. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. So here he straightens it out for them and lets them know that the woman is supposed to submit herself to her husband. The woman should not follow after the teaching of Diana, which was a teaching that the woman was to usurp the authority over the man. It was a teaching that the woman was greater than the man or better than the man or did not need the man. And for any reason today, women would resist their husbands, then this needs to be corrected. And let me say this to you, that a divine marriage relationship is a relationship that is not dried up. It is a relationship that is fresh. It is a relationship that is satisfying. It is a relationship that is fulfilling. It is enjoyable. It is holy. It is fun. It is thrilling. It is exciting. It is sacred. It has the joy that should be there, hugging and kissing and caring for one another. It is a relationship of pleasing one another. It is a relationship of safety and security and of a sound understanding of one another. An unending relationship. It is a relationship that lasts until death do you part. It is a relationship that is time redeeming. It gets on to the business of time. It's a relationship that captures the moment. It is a relationship where one basks in the abundance of the pleasures of marriage. It is a relationship of peace and approval of God. It is being in the good graces of God and the mate. It is like heaven on earth. When we apply the divine attributes of God in our marriages, we get the divine pleasures of that which was made and intended by God. We get all that God has for us in marriage. So what Paul is saying here is he was trying to help the women and help the men, trying to help them to overcome the challenges. They can overcome the challenges of a marriage when there are struggles, when the husband seems to be lacking in his love and the wife seems to be lacking in her submission. It is possible, and sometimes men have a tendency to be unthinking and unappreciative. They can fall into comparing their wives with their mother or someone else. Women can be weak also. Wives should submit to their husbands. And sometimes they don't communicate. Sometimes women have a tendency and can communicate resistance, like we just discussed in 1 Timothy chapter 2. There is the solution or the key for that is humility and submission. Women can resist and be non-responsive to their husbands. The solution to that is for the women to submit to their own husbands. They can withhold their gifts. They can withhold rendering their love one to the other. The solution to that is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Let the husband render unto his wife due benevolence, and the wife render unto her husband due benevolence. A woman can shut down. A woman can wander off into their own world. They can lose their excitement. They can be hurt and shut down communications. When these things are succumbed to by the woman, the marriage is not in a divine relationship. When these things happen, we can find the love starving for water. We can find appreciation bottled up, the appreciation bottle empty. The safety factor and assurance factor gone. The couple does not smile at each other. They treat each other like old clothes that they are bored with. When these things happen, when a marriage loses its divineness, the mates become less and less respectful to one another and have less and less value for one another. They waste time and life, opportunity, and they lose out on the blissful relationships of marriage. The youthful flirting in the marriage is clogged up when the marriage is not in a divine marriage state, and they hurt one another. The marriage itself can become hopeless, and they can become in despair and have little zeal. In this condition, the couple is being further and further distanced from the divine blissful relationship that is built into marriage. When they find themselves outside of the divine marriage relationship, if you found yourself today outside of the idea and the actual divine marriage relationship, the idea that God has set forth, then you need to pull out the keys to the divine marriage relationship. Those keys: forgiveness, patience, love, interest in one another. These things you should do. You should go back and revive that love. The husband should take the lead in trying to revive that marriage. Don't die with your marriage in bad shape. Don't lose time. If God has blessed you with health and strength and soundness of mind, do not lose time wasting time in a dead marriage relationship, but revive that marriage relationship and revive it and rekindle that flame, and God will bless you to rekindle that flame. What you need to do is you need to forgive one another. You need to open up communication. You need to determine that your marriage is worth saving. You need to determine that your mate is worth having. And so let me give you a few tips. In your relationships, revive your relationships, men. Revive your relationships. Go out and speak kindly to your mate. Flirt with her. Show her the love that you have for her. The keys to the divine marriage relationship, or a surviving one, is to recommit yourself to your vows, submission to one another, and cooperation, having a high appraisal of each other, celebrate each other, have the mutual giving to one another, submitting to one another. And on a practical note, here's some tips. Forgive when the other person is wrong, and even if they are right. Apologize when you're wrong, and sometimes even if you're right. Smile at your wife. Play with her fingers. Act like a high school flirter with her. Buy her presents. Have her feel that she is the most important thing in the world to you. Remind her that she is the best thing since sliced bread. Because we do not know how long we have to live, we must take advantage of the days and the times that we have with one another to please one another and to be happy. And that can only come from being married to you in her, make her happy. And the happiness can only come by her being married to you in a divine marriage relationship. God bless you, and we will see you next week as we continue the discussion of the divine marriage relationship.